President Trump's first week in office included sweeping measures making good on a promise of an immigration crackdown, from increased border staffing to birthright citizenship orders.
What do the moves mean for individuals and employers? Joining us to explain your legal rights and obligations if ICE comes knocking, immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. Good morning, Kate. As an immigration attorney, do you expect the president's various measures to have a significant impact on your work?
I do, and I've already seen it. I had a client placed in removal proceedings just this week after being pulled over. I'm getting lots and lots of calls, and my practice is shifting from more of an affirmative, filing applications, to defensive, defending people against deportation. It's very busy.
Okay, so what advice do you have for individuals who are approached by ICE? You mentioned a vehicle, or if they're at home.
Sure. When someone's in their home, it's really important to exercise our constitutional rights and to not allow law enforcement in our homes without a search warrant. So if law enforcement, if that's the police or ICE, is knocking on the door, we can ask them to show us their search warrant either through the window or under the door, and review the document and make sure it is a real search warrant before the door gets open. And everybody in the family needs to know this rule, including the children. Now, if ICE or the police approach someone out on the street and start asking questions about their immigration status, everyone has the right not to answer questions, to leave if you're not being arrested, and if you are being arrested, remain silent. This is always good advice. Remain silent, don't sign anything, and ask to speak to a lawyer.
All right, what if you're a business owner or employer and are questioned about your staff?
So the search warrant rule applies to businesses like it does with homes, but the distinction is that there are public and private areas in a business. So let's say a raid happens on a business. If there's a clear distinction between the lobby and the private area, maybe it's a doctor's office and there's patient rooms that are private, it's important to clearly label what is public and what is private in a business. Of course, employers need to be ensuring that their employees have work permission and completing I-9 forms and having that all up to date. They need to have a lawyer who can help them and advise them in case there is a raid or an emergency, and always have a plan before it occurs. Who is going to be the point person? Do they understand what the rules are, and what are we going to do? And is that person always going to be available to call in an emergency? With all of these things, it's really critical to have a pre-plan, because what I've seen is that when people are responding in emergencies, I mean, similar to, gathering things when the fires are coming, we don't think clearly in those moments, and it's important to think before it occurs and have a plan.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, does the legal advice that you're giving right now, does it apply equally to everyone?
Sure. Everyone should be exercising their constitutional rights against search and seizure and their right to remain silent. This is good advice for everyone, regardless of their immigration status. We all have to protect ourselves and our privacy.
And now to the undocumented. What advice do you have for the undocumented? What items should they keep on them, for example?
First piece of advice for every undocumented person is to obtain a consultation with an immigration lawyer, not a notario, not your neighbor. I had a guy tell me the other day that he consulted with his butcher and his mechanic about his case, and he missed a filing deadline. And I hear this stuff all the time. So it's really important to have a consultation for each individual with an immigration attorney. And another really important piece of advice right now is that for people who are undocumented, who have been in the country for longer than 2 years, that they are able to prove that time in the U.S., because someone who has less than 2 years in the country does not have due process rights against a deportation. They can be deported without a hearing. So it's critical that people collect this evidence, which can be birth certificates of children, medical records, taxes, etc., and have that at the ready to be able to defend and obtain due process and the right to a hearing if they get placed in a deportation process.
And I just want to ask, we're short on time, but 2 points I was hoping you could touch on. According to reports, this crackdown is focused on booting criminal migrants. I'm wondering if that's what you're seeing in your personal practice. And number two, we're a sanctuary state in California. LA is a sanctuary city. What difference does that make in any of this?
I am not seeing that people with significant criminal history are the ones being targeted. The client that I mentioned that was pulled over, he was pulled over for a license plate issue and he was put in removal proceedings, had no criminal issues. And I'm seeing that in other cases as well. What I would say about sanctuary city areas or areas where local law enforcement does not have a cooperative agreement with ICE is that ICE will be more aggressive in those regions because they won't rely upon the police authorities to conduct immigration raids and apprehensions. So you'll see more ICE activity in regions that are considered sanctuary. And some of that potentially may be retaliatory by the agency. They would probably argue that they don't have the support of police locally, so that's where they focus their efforts.
All right, Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, thanks so much for joining us, immigration attorney. And for more information about Kate, head to lincolngoldfinch.com. We'll be right back.